The village of Eldowen stood forgotten at the edge of the old forest, where the hills rolled like sleeping giants and the fog tasted like iron. Ivy clawed at the bones of moss-covered cottages, and the winding roads whispered beneath the wheels of the occasional traveler who took a wrong turn. Meredith arrived on a slate-gray morning, her breath fogging in the bitter air, the keys to her recently inherited house biting cold against her palm. It loomed before her, an angular stone structure hunched between two withered oaks, as if waiting. Her great-aunt Agatha had lived here all her life, alone after her family vanished in 1952. The townsfolk never spoke of that night, their eyes shifting like clouds whenever her name arose. Meredith didn't believe in curses, only in grief passed down like heirlooms. The house exhaled a stagnant cold when she stepped inside, as if burping up decades of secrets. Dust motes danced like ash in the faint shafts of light sneaking through torn curtains. The air carried a sour tang, old wood, mildew, and something else, something sweet and rotting. Her boots echoed on warped floorboards as she moved through the rooms, each filled with relics of an era left behind. Cracked doll heads, brittle books with gold leaf titles, clocks that ticked only in her presence. The parlor held a long mirror, so clouded that her reflection appeared like a shadow more than a form. More than once, she thought she heard the mirror whisper. Only the brittle settling of the glass, she told herself. But at nightfall, when she lit the fireplace, she swore the mirror pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat buried in glass. Nights bled into one another. The house grew quieter, but things grew louder in her mind. Faint scratching behind the walls became impossible to ignore, first in the floorboards under the bed, then directly behind her when she sat reading. Once, she carved away old wallpaper in the study and found dozens of fingernail marks etched into the wood beneath, as though someone had once clawed to escape. The stillness began to warp. The mirrors always showed her slightly turned, slightly distorted, like memories seen through water. In her dreams, she walked endless hallways that didn't exist in waking hours, haunted by whispers that echoed in her aunt's voice. "Don't let the house know you see it." Each morning she woke tangled in sheets, sweating through her clothes, nose stained with the coppery scent of something old. One evening, as the sun smothered itself behind the hills, Meredith found a door behind a bookshelf. It wasn't on the blueprints and hadn't been painted like the rest, just wood, raw and cold to the touch. When she opened it, the air inside was still and heavy, laced with the same sweet rot from before. The room had no windows, only walls lined with mirrors, some broken, some whole. At the center stood a worn velvet chair and a small table stacked with yellow journals. She opened one, and felt bile rise in her throat. Page after page, Agatha had recorded messages scrawled backwards, only readable through reflection. "The house is awake. It knows my name. The mirror remembers." Behind her, a mirror let out a soft creak. She turned, but saw only her own broad-eyed stare. Meredith started seeing things that others couldn't. When the postman came, he blinked past the shadows pressed against the upper windows. When the grocer dropped off supplies, he didn't flinch at the low muttering that wove through the silence. Alone again, she noticed something else. Her reflection lagged behind, blinking a moment too late, smiling without her permission. She avoided mirrors, but they multiplied, appearing in rooms she hadn't put them in. At night, reflections of empty rooms showed shapes moving, limbs unfurling, mouths yawning wide where none should be. One night she looked up from the mirror room's journals and saw a figure behind her in the glass. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, its jaw wide open in a silent shriek. But when she whipped around, only the velvet chair remained, still warm. The morning she decided to leave, she woke unable to find the house's exit. Hallways twisted into each other, and doors opened onto stairwells that sank into darkness. Her own reflection met her at every turn, stepping out of sync, watching her with pity or hunger. Panic set in. She clawed at the walls where windows had once been. The fog outside had thickened into something solid, pressing against the glass like breath from a leviathan. That night, she sat in the mirrored room, whispering to her reflection for hours until it finally spoke back in her aunt's voice. "One must stay," it said, "for the house to sleep." Meredith cried until she was empty. In the morning, the house would be silent again. Waiting, always waiting, and in an old velvet chair beneath the clouded mirrors, a new reflection smiled.